Hello, welcome to the Leadership Insights conversation between me, Christine, and Florian. Hi, Florian. So, everyone who doesn't know who I am, hopefully you all know who we are by now, but we give you a quick introduction. I'm Christine. I'm the CEO and founder of Let's Talk, and I unlock entrepreneurial spirit in organizations, mainly through internal communication training. And Florian, do you want to quickly say hello?
Yes, hello, my name is Florian, and I develop efficient individuals and teams as units, which means people come to me when they want to increase their way of dealing with one another and each other's problems, so everything goes more smoothly and workflow starts to happen more and more often and more natural.
Yes, amazing. And we work both with similar people and have worked in the past with a lot of similar groups of people. So we decided to do these leadership insight conversations using specific statistics. And today we're talking about actually the health of the employees and talking about burnout as well. And here we have an interesting statistic, and that's just one of many, of course, that improving global employee health and well-being could create up to 11.7 trillion, I don't even know how many zeros that is, in economic value. And according to McKinsey here, better aligning employment with modifiable drivers of health could unlock years of higher quality life and create, again, trillions of dollars of economic value. So this is basically what we will be talking about today. So Florian, would you like to kick off this topic? Because I know you have vast experience working on this specific topic as well.
Absolutely. So McKinsey has discovered six drivers that help avoid burnout or increase health and well-being amongst employees. And the fun thing is, what McKinsey found out asking and studying thousands and thousands of individuals in different companies, and this is the fun thing for many people, something that is very, how to say, not something you would expect.
Mhm.
So most people or most companies, most organizations already do a lot for well-being. They think they do. And what they do usually is they offer yoga classes, they offer meditations, they offer different kinds of things where well-being is increased. But
Mm.
McKinsey found out that actually this only covers the major issues that are actually responsible for burnouts and don't really help to avoid it or get rid of it. So they say the biggest issue of burnout risk is a toxic work environment.
Yes.
And you can imagine now that when you have a toxic environment, that yoga class is probably not the thing that helps. So what I've experienced in the past is that when you do well-being measurements in the company, they are only linear and they only go on one thing. They go on the individual most of the time. But most problems that add up and lead to a burnout and toxic environments, amongst the biggest factors of one of them, they are not individual issues. They are structural problems. There are problems that are actually coming from top down. It's actually a strategic issue
Mm.
which should be addressed strategically. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about now.
Yes, and it's really nice that you kicked it off with this, I have to say, because, yeah, like you said, a gym membership, some fruit in the kitchen, free coffee and tea, and maybe some meditation classes don't cut it really if the rest doesn't work. So it's not that it's not a nice addition to something that is already a great company culture and like a psychologically safe work environment. It's nice to add these things, and these are benefits, though. These are benefits that the company can offer, but they're not what's basically preventing burnout, preventing mental health issues in the workplace. And exactly what you mentioned, McKinsey found out that usually people don't go to the root problem
Mm.
of things, and work really not in a holistic way to tackle this issue, and a holistic way, not in a woohoo kind of way, to adding more crystal healing to it. However, it's about creating a psychologically safe environment, open conversations, and a great company culture. And we actually had an entire conversation about company culture, that you're welcome to listen to, if you like, and that you can find those also on our YouTube channel. I think it was actually our first conversation that we had.
Mm.
But it's really important to look at it in a broader way on all kind of levels in the organization, how you can create this psychologically safe and work environment and culture to prevent burnout and to actually save money in the end. Because ill employees, a high illness rate, costs company a lot of money.
Mm. Absolutely. So the thing is, while we were saying on the beginning, these measures that most people do don't actually go to the root, yet they're very important to
Yeah.
increase mental health. And I think it's a huge difference, or it's important to understand the difference between mental health and a toxic environment, because both of them can coexist.
Mhm.
And this is what is important to see. You can create things there where stress gets reduced. You can increase the well-being by having like a fruit basket and all these things you mentioned on the beginning. But all those things can coexist next to a toxic work environment. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what creates that toxicity? And in many times, it is that roles are not clear, that people don't know exactly where the role starts and where it ends. They don't know how to communicate those roles. This is a very big issue as well. And it's a lot of, and this follows when I don't know my role, with priorities and prioritization. So getting these things straight helps a lot to get the toxicity out of the environment. And this is most of the time something that has to happen from above. It's not something that people can decide for themselves. It's not an individual thing. It's not something that they can take care. It has to happen from top down, which means it has to happen from the management.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's um, they can coexist. So, like we said, just because you have these benefits that you give to the employees that support a good mental health, there might be toxic behavior. And that's it's where you have to look at the entire organization. And this is what Florian also just said, from the top down, let's say, because it's the role of the managers, the senior leaders in the organization, to ensure that there is a good mental health, psychologically safe work environment, whatever you want to call it. And it's important that everyone gets involved, everyone understands, and also to look at individuals. Because one thing, and again, we mentioned that in another conversation as well, you can have defined your company culture and have everything written down nicely on how it should be. If it's not put into practice in the end, that's where the toxicity starts, actually. And maybe it's even a specific person that might be, let's say, a toxic element, not necessarily on purpose, but doesn't know how to deal with that. So if you are creating guidelines, if you get someone in from external to do some training and coaching on people, it's where you have to look at, okay, what does it mean for the entire organization and for the individuals in different positions, top down first, and then also how you can create that in teams, and how is this toxicity, it's a difficult word,
Yes.
how is this dealt with within the company if something like that arises? But again, how do the people at the top actually know that this is a problem? Because also that is like a gap. It's like the detachment, usually, that they don't really know what's going on, and they don't need to know every detail. But of course, higher levels need to attach to the lower levels to know what's actually happening,
Yeah.
because sometimes the other levels, okay, if we want to use these words, um, they don't they're not opening up about these problems if they don't feel that they can.
Yes, exactly. So it's very important actually to do anonymous feedbacks that you gather over the time, which in every strategic discussion that you do, usually when you have your quarterlies or your strategic meetings, you should address or you should use the feedback that comes from bottom up that helps you to make strategic decisions.
Yes.
And organizational health and well-being should be one of those topics discussed in those meetings. And you can only do that when you have the information from
Mhm.
the organization, which you only get by asking, and you have to do it anonymously, like Christine already said, because most people will not be straight with you or outward when it comes to this like kind of psychological or emotional issues they're facing when they resignate internally because they feel like mobbed or they don't feel understood or they don't feel safe and all this kind of stuff. So you need to ask them through feedback in some ways.
Mm.
And another thing, what I want to say to when you have a structural issue that comes with toxic environment is when we treat only the individual problem and we, let's say, get in a coach that is doing mindfulness, is doing resilience training, and the problem, although is a structural one and not an individual one, what happens is, and this is also a thing that McKinsey found out, that these people get more self-esteem through the trainings, through the resilience trainings, through all these things. And 60% of the people quit their job or tend more to quit their job because now, because of the training, they feel more confident. They have they have a lower threshold of toxicity and they want more, they expect more. And so now, because they feel better, they know how to deal with certain things, they don't want to cope with this anymore and leave or think about leaving the company. So training resilience and helping people to overcome those issues and make them more confident, more self-esteem leads sometimes to the other direction that you actually want to go when you give them the training in the first place, because the underlying issue, the root cause, is not solved.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so important to solve it structurally and then individually. And this goes hand in hand.
I love that. It's so important. And there was a another statistics, and I think it was HR review that was revealing that 1 in 4 employees are looking for a new job. It's quite a lot. It's like a lot. um, Without the employer knowing. Okay, because sometimes, of course, if it's an open conversation and things, you say, well, I'm looking for a new job, and maybe you already hand in your notice and then try to find a new job. Usually it's the other way around, but um, 1 in 4, I think the statistics was saying, is looking for a new job and the employer doesn't know. So even more important, um, doing those surveys, and there's even like surveys on psychological safety with structures that you can use and things like that, or you get someone external in that is doing these evaluations where people fill in certain questions, answers for certain questions and rate certain things. And you see immediately in the outcome when something also highlighted in different colors. So in red, okay, that this person, so maybe there's just person 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And you see person 3 is really not well, and this person is probably looking for a new job without knowing who it is, hopefully. What happened, unfortunately, a lot of times that is that when you do these surveys anonymously and a result like this comes out where it's really extreme situations where you see that really there's people that are super unwell and super unhappy, then the organization wants to go in and say, okay, who is this? Okay, who is this? And this can be positive because they want to support that person, but it's not the point of being anonymous.
Mhm.
This is something to think about. So what we're saying is important to do those measurements and tools and also have these individual opportunities and benefits that you're offering because they strengthen all the individuals, but only that won't cut it. You need to look
Mhm.
at a holistic approach.
I love what you say. I love what you say because the feedbacks and surveys is only one side of the coin. And the other side is what comes to one of the 6 drivers that McKinsey mentioned, and that is social interaction.
Yes.
So if you really want to support and you want to get to the root, you need to have individual conversations with the people that you work with. So social interaction is not something that you only want to support when it comes to teams play together, develop together, work together harmoniously, but also when it comes to that the managers and the mid-level managers talk to their employees and find out what's really going on, and not only looking at them through the perspective of a boss, but as a human. And like create real connection with them. And I think this is what I see, what people really need and crave most is, since we're working most of the time either alone or we're looking at our computer or we're doing something, but we feel a lot of more and more lonely. So what
Yes.
people crave and look for is connection. And that is real connection, not I having my catalog of questions and now I'm asking you these 5 questions that I have read in the HR book I should ask you, but honest questions that help you to connect and really feel what's going on in the other person's life. Because this is something that creates a hormonal compound, we call it oxytocin, that
Mhm.
actually helps you to lower stress. Oxytocin is a hormone that reduces stress and helps you to get stronger, and they say even expands lifespan. So you want to create scenarios where people, like teams, have these social interactions with one another, but also create this safe environment between you as a manager, whatever you are, with your teams and employees. So to create these environments and have safe spaces where people can really share, where people start trusting and opening up. And that is one of the strongest factors when it comes to lowering stress, which is the second thing of the 6 that McKinsey mentioned. But maybe Christine, you also want to say something to that before I have my
Yes.
monologue here.
Yeah, exactly. So perfect what you just said. So you might know if you're watching this that I wrote actually a book about the happiness formula, which is not about happiness in organizations, but can be translated into that. And one passage was exactly about that, oxytocin and all the happiness hormones that and how we can produce them. And one major factor, just like you said, is the feeling of belonging, and which means being part of a community. So in a personal life, that means maybe you go to church, or maybe if you're not religious, you belong to another club or something like that, where you have community and are not lonely. This is translates wonderfully in the workplace, like you said. And people sometimes think psychological safety means, oh, we don't accept bullies. You can't bully someone. Psychological safety has so many facets and nuances, and how you can create that. And one of these is also not excluding anyone out of activities. Yeah. So it's really important to have this inclusion. And I'm not talking about diversity and things like that. I mean, really being inclusive in any activities, meaning also thinking about if you're organizing events, if you're organizing a day off or a team building day or something, do you think about the people and the challenges they might have? I mean, a very simple thing that you can think about, if someone has problems with their spine or anything like that, and you organize a bowling evening, then that person is already excluded, and that person might feel excluded and think like, but you know I can't do this. And it's like these little tweaks. It's just one example. And I was running an executive roundtable discussion, and there was one thing in there that one person in an organization does beautifully. They created listening hours, and exactly what you just mentioned, where they can just, it's like drop-in sessions. Yeah, there's just there. At this time that day, we have listening hour, and whoever wants to come can come and talk. And they started talking about first, obviously, they didn't know what's this, what should I talk about? So they started talking about private things. So that's also nice because you get to understand and get to know your team better. But then they started to open up because they felt safe and in a trusted environment, open up about work problems, maybe about things that they think should improve. And they saw that they were listening and that they were taking action on what they were saying and trying to improve things. And so more and more people came, illness rate dropped drastically, and it really supported all of that. So everything that you mentioned, you need to belong, this sense of
Really
belonging,
nice.
part of a community, being listened to is all these things. And you can achieve that in a fairly easy way, let's say. You don't have to restructure the entire organization.
I like what you just said about this kind of conflict, kind of what you mentioned. I believe, and I have experienced that when you have the feeling of belonging, and because you said psychological safety is way more than just this one thing, it also creates trust when you have belonging. And trust is the foundation in order to actually have constructive dispute and conflict, which in my experience is one of the most powerful things when it comes to really create something that is new, that is really out of the ordinary. And it needs trust in order to have conflict, but conflict in a positive way. When people shy back from conflict, usually what happens is they bottle up, and then at some point they start to become frustrated because they don't talk about it. They don't buy into ideas. They just say, yeah, I'm going to do it, but they don't really want to do it. And then they start talking in their breaks. And this is when things start to fall apart and crumble. So what you want to have, belonging, creating trust, and the trust helps to speak openly and open up to things that challenge things, conflicts of interests, and so on and so on. This is what you really want to have. You want to have an environment where conflict can happen and is supported, where the manager is not, it's fighting again, but say, yes, now we have energy in the room. Can we stir that up and build it, channelize it in a certain way, in a direction? And this is, again, it's trust and belonging. So it's so powerful. And what you said before about productive activity, to do something that gives meaning, that can be something that is either during the job, or it can be something that is in leisure activities, doing something meaningful, helping certain organizations, is also something that a company or a organization can create for their individuals, whoever they are. Create opportunities where people that work there have the chance to do something that is beyond the company, that helps the environment, that helps any cause that you can come up with. And this is something how you can engage the whole stuff from top to down in something that is more than just work, but is doing something great.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really important that you on a top level, other levels we don't talk about for now, but on a leader, if you're a leader in your company, you should not shy away from difficult situations and conversations, like you said. You should see those as opportunities to change something. And I really like what you just said. What else do we have in those factors?
Stress, of course, is one of the six. I believe you can imagine that stress is one of the big ones. How do you, and we already talked about it, how can you lower stress? Is by one part an individual thing, because it's helping people to deal with change, helping people with the productivity issues like time management, giving them the tools to deal with workload and prioritizing. This is what come across in the last years when I'm working with organizations. The most of the time that people feel burned out when it's not from toxicity is because workload management, it's time management, is prioritization, if I say that right, and dealing with stress. And this comes back because you can, the first three, easily teach with most trainings that is out there. But what for me has the biggest impact is emotion management. If you can supply or give people the opportunity to learn to deal with their emotions more effectively, then stress will become an opportunity. Stress is not a bad thing per se. Stress is the zone where we grow. Yes. The problem is not stress, but how we deal with stress, that we label it different, we label it negative, and we deal with a permanent stress. And yes, that is the problem, that we don't have phases of going up and coming down. We are going up and up and up. And when you have experienced in your life that already that you go to holidays and you get sick, that is a clear indicator for you have been on permanent stress, which creates cortisol that does not reduce through the weekend. The weekend is not enough. It takes 3-4 days for cortisol to reduce. And when cortisol is coming down, then the whole system is crashing and people get sick. So if you experience this in yourself or in your organization, then you know that people are exposed to too much workload and don't know how to deal with it, or are dealing with too much toxicity, and there needs to be change.
Yes, and absolutely, stress is something that we label in a negative way, but in the end, it's a sign for you that you need to look at something. So like everything is, your emotions, I know you work with a lot with emotions, we worked even together. So everything is there for a reason and to show you something, to tell you something, and that you need to deal with something. If you deal with it immediately or a bit later, is up to you. But then there's also stress, like you said, is not always negative, because if we look at positive situations that create stress, so someone is getting married, you get a promotion, you need to give a presentation, you need to speak in public for specific goals also that you want to reach, you're moving houses. But if we look at the work environment, let's say, like I said, you get a promotion, for example, there's stress involved, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I need to deal with new things that I have never dealt with. And there's some people that deal better with that and say, I love a challenge, I want this. It's still stress also for them. The same things happen in the body. However, the way we deal with it is super important.
I think one of the most beautiful frameworks that helped me a lot in the past and still do is a framework from Viktor Frankl, who differentiated meaningful stress from meaningless stress, and meaningful joy from meaningless joy, or meaningless fun. And I think if you use this framework when you decide on structural changes, how to support your employees, your staff, and whoever is inside and around the company, it helps a lot. Because like you just mentioned, there is a meaningful stress that is like creating something powerful, something beautiful. Sometimes it's you need to work hard, sometimes you need to do extra hours. But if you can connect meaning to it, and you can communicate that meaning effectively and efficiently, so people understand the meaning and what they're doing, and that the outcome and so on, then they are more likely to take it as a beautiful experience than when there is meaningless stress, because it's over and over and over again, and they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't see no end. There's no perspective. There's no end in sight. It's going to be the same forever. This is when meaning goes down and it becomes meaningless stress. And this is harmful.
Yeah, exactly. to wrap up this conversation, let's look at one more thing maybe before we finish off that. Two more things to finish up that conversation.
Yeah. So two more to have the six in total
Yes.
is one very crucial factor is economic security.
Mm-hmm.
So the study has shown that people who have economic security suffer way less sicknesses and have way less problems when it comes to health and well-being than people, stuff, whatever you want to call them, do suffer from that don't have economic safety, which means in basic language, if you don't have enough to cover your costs, your fixed costs, that creates a lot of stress and anxiety, which leads to health issues, which is very simple, actually, if you put it like that. And so you should make sure, and this again comes through individual conversations to find out in which place these people are, what they need, what do they have goals in mind, what do they want to reach, and how much money do they actually need to cover their expenses so they don't have to worry about economic situation.
Yes.
So this is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Wait,
last thing is,
yeah,
yes.
if I respond to that quickly, because I think, well, as an entrepreneur, me for sure, and probably also you, at some point in our years of entrepreneurial journey, we've been in that situation as well, where it's really stressful thinking about, okay, how do I pay my next rent next month? And that works out. Sometimes it's trusting the universe and things like that. But
And working hard.
working off as well. In another situation, I had a conversation with someone, and what they've done to lower the stress at work, they said, well, we have also the 80% scheme. If someone wants to, you can work less hours, but obviously you get also paid less. And pretty much everyone said they can't allow themselves to work less because they need that money, because there is life there. So now this company is looking at other ways to support them. It's nice that this is an offer, that they say, this flexibility. However, if you get the answer, I can't allow myself to work less and to earn less in that point, then it's time to look at other things. So let's come to the last point.
And the last one is sleep.
Oh,
And it's something that, sorry?
I love sleeping.
Exactly. So many people sleep just 6 to 7 hours, and
Mm.
yet studies have shown that you need your 7 to 8 hours. And the more you use your brain, the more new things you learn, the more sleep you need. So if you feel tired, you should sleep more. But it's not something that you can influence in an organization very much. But what you can do is to, like I have seen in some companies, and we have created that opportunity in some companies that have had enough space. So we created rooms where people could lay down for lunch and just have a speed nap or just a good hour in a very dark room with the opportunity to listen to meditations, listen to certain frequencies that help them to relax, and use the lunch break or half of the lunch break to zone out and go back after lunch fully on and with a lot of energy. This is what
Yeah.
you can do as an organization.
I think that's lovely. And my partner always says that humans are like smartphones because we need to recharge. We need to be sometimes in airplane mode to go to sleep. We need a restart for certain things, a reboot. We need sometimes some updates by feeding us new knowledge and things like that. And sleep is so important. I mean, I think everyone knows when you're really stressed and your body will get back that sleep. You will just feel super tired and you need to sleep. And so you need to do that. You need to rest. You need to allow yourself to rest, to allow your mind to rest as well, and not overwork.
Mm.
Yeah, so
And
thank you.
that comes back to training through the organization, help people to understand how important the interpretation of stress is, how important interpersonal connection is, how important the social activities are, or meaningful activities, and how important sleep is, and help them to give them tools to actually address those issues for themselves.
Yes.
That helps a
Yeah.
lot. And to come to a closing, because for many things that you have probably heard here, you would say, yeah, but how would I do that? I mean, we are maybe a smaller organization, or we don't have the space, and so on. There's a lot of buts coming up. And to address those buts, there is, and especially when you are in cities or in bigger cities, and you hear this, there's always the opportunity to talk to other organizations and do joint programs. So it's not one company, one organization taking care of like having sleeping rooms, but maybe 3 to 4 organizations, and solve this problem as teams, in from organization to organization together.
Yes, I love that. And or you can work with someone like us that helps you through that. So thank you, Florian. So today we talked about employee health and burnout, and maybe ways, the 6 factors that McKinsey identified. We talked about that it all comes back to the company culture and maybe a toxic environment, and getting away from that, creating a psychologically safe environment. We talked about the roles maybe being not clear enough. So it's about communication, really, and being clear. It's about a mix of strategic approach and individual benefits that you can do, and combined that has the biggest impact, with a top-down approach. So everyone needs to get involved. We talked about the sense of belonging and having that community feeling there in your personal life, but especially, of course, within that organization, not shying away from difficult situations, but using that energy to work with that and to improve something, and creating opportunities out of that. And then last but not least, we were talking about lowering stress, where economic safety, so money, plays a big role. And last but not least, the wonderful topic of sleep. So, as usual, Florian, thank you so much for all the insights that we shared together. I really enjoy our conversations. Everyone, if you would like to connect with us, you can find us online, connect with us on LinkedIn. Take this conversation further with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you never want to miss another conversation, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Nice speaking to you again, and hope to see you soon again.